2/3 of the world lives on less than $2 a day.
Most people think of poverty and they don't understand that people are poor because they don't have jobs. So anytime you enable people to work, you are addressing poverty.
In Africa, Ghana is moving fast.
They know us and we come back and we care about them and they care about us.
This emerging market is changing.
If you don't know people, you know what they really care about, what they want, what they need, and they don't know you and where you're from, it doesn't really work.
Join us as we go inside this emerging market to see how strong relationships are literally changing the world. Today on Big Questions. I'm Kim Clark.
And I'm Pat Werheim.
We go out into the world to look at everything.
Topics such as food deserts, wage theft, and recidivism in jails.
Access to healthcare, education, welfare, major issues we face at home and around the world today.
Come search with us for answers to these issues and more
as we discovered new answers to today's big questions.
Ghana is one of Africa's biggest success stories. But even with a rapidly growing economy, Ghana has many problems to solve. Some of these are improving the education of its children, eliminating extreme poverty, working on equality for women, and avoiding the discrimination of its disabled.
It takes many people to look for solutions, but each one can make a difference.
I was the director of children's ministries in a church in an affluent area where I wanted the children to broaden their idea of the world. And then at the same time, Dick became involved with the data board.
On the data board, you'd get entertained by USAID or UN, and they would all say the best thing you can do for Africa is to educate the girls, and the best way to educate the girls is to build a water well, because if you go out to the villages, the girls are gone literally all day long fetching water.
And we put money together and did the first well, and then we did more. We had never been to Africa. I'd never really thought about Africa, going to Africa. And at one point Dick said we had done several wells at that time, and he said we have to go over there and see them, and I said we do?
Yeah.
Yes, we have to go over there, and so we did.
Although Ghana is a growing economy, many people live in small villages, and many of them don't have water. So girls are expected every day to go fetch water, usually at taking 3 hours each way. This means that the girls don't go to school. Dick and Susie decided to invest in wells in these villages.
It's a very formal process.
Yes.
I tell them about that. You go into a town and you talk to the chief, and they ask, why are you here? And say, we'd like to do a well for you. And we've done about 15 a year, I think, in this time.
The Kipharts have sponsored 85 such wells, and these wells have made a huge difference in the lives of the people living there.
After the well was there, we went back a year or so later, and we noticed that there was a little chicken coop and another place for storage of corn. The interesting thing is that if there are chickens all over the place, but if you don't
pin them in,
pin them in or coop, then you don't know where the eggs are, and you might lose out on all of that good protein. So once they had the well, I think the energy level, if your water is good, your energy level is, aside from even diseases, your energy level is raised.
This is a village that has a well put in it by our friends the Kipharts and many, many other people. But we've come here to see the fruits of their labor. It's a well that goes down 70 feet, and you pump it just like the old-time wells that I grew up with, and maybe some of you grew up with. It's a wonderful village, and people are really friendly. There's chickens running around everywhere, cocoa beans drying, corn drying. It's just a great place.
And the best thing is the girls are back in school. Now school is pretty Spartan. It's kind of 5 to 12 years old, and it's a teacher who's the most literate in the village, but the girls get to go to school.
They never went
Really?
to school before.
Yeah, yeah.
This was
Really?
a beginning.
There was nothing
So,
close
yeah.
to there.
So you were compelled enough to go to a country you've never even thought about going to, according to you, and never been to, and you went to meet a chief and dug a hole. And from this hole sprung a lot of good things.
Right.
But the amount of people you had to get involved to dig this hole was enormous.
You know, this is such a network of things happening. It's such a weaving. It's all woven together. Peter Edifel, who
Yeah.
has since passed away, but he helped us with the whole thing.
He's Ghanaian.
And he's Ghanaian, and he came to the United States. He worked for the Ghanaian government. They sent him here to study for the Millennium Challenge, to study what the UN's requirements were for gaining some of that money. He became our dear friend, and so the money was wired directly to him. He was in charge of the well digging teams and putting it all together, and then we would go over and see what they had done. So it was a very simple kind of mom and
We
pop.
budgeted every year.
Yeah, we budgeted with them every year, and they chose the places. So it was kind of a mom and pop operation.
I think the one thing that because we love these people and
Yeah.
we really enjoy, is that we went back.
Right.
You just didn't go once and looked at well.
So
yes, that's important.
we didn't, we always go back. So we built relationships.
And
It's all about everything is all about relationships. I mean, the whole thing is about relationships. And if you don't know people, you know what they really care about, what they want, what they need, and they don't know you and where you're from. It doesn't really work.
You mentioned a woman named Annie.
Well,
Annie, go ahead. Tell 'em about Annie.
Opoku is our dear friend, Dr. Annie Opoku, who is a medical doctor, who runs she's the head of the Children's Welfare Clinic in Kumasi, in which if you went there any day of the week, there would be a line a block and a half long of ladies that she services for free and children, and it's
A government clinic.
Is it?
and we've done the nutrition programs. We've
Yeah.
always helped her, and it was interesting is that one of the things that they do is you see a lot of malnutrition, not lack of calories, but malnutrition means that you eat too much cassava and yam, which is basically a starch,
right.
and you got to get some protein in there, and she teaches them to use, if you know anything about vegetarianism, legumes and grain, and she
Mixing rice and
grinds. And
beans.
so we bought her a house and a grinder, and they teach the women to put some of this. She's very invested in all of this, and I'm not a person that cries, but I had an incident with her that made me cry, because we walk in with, the 6th or 7th time we're there, and she introduces us to this absolutely gorgeous young new nutritionist, Ghanaian gal, maybe 25, 6 years old. And so we go in the back, and we figured out a little nutrition center where they're starting. We come back, and the young girl is at the door screaming at a lady, and Annie goes over and says, what's the problem here? And she said, this woman comes here every day. She's nothing but trouble. She just causes pandemonium. We're not letting her in. And Annie walks over to her, and she can tell by feeling how the tactile the skin is, and looks at the baby, and she says to the nutritionist, clean up the baby and feed her.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I cry. That was our purpose, is the
Yeah.
babies.
Some people
away.
know what they're doing, right?
And she and
don't get
Susie
it.
are like sisters. She doesn't say to Susie, these young kids don't get it. She doesn't scream at the girl. She just,
She's just
that was
focused.
it.
Pat and I talked all the way home. Just the fact that after every turn, there's an inspirational story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just one or two. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of dedicated people surrounding you and the work you've done, and you're part of their work. And
So
it's-
many people are trying to save the world.
Yes.
And are actually.
Yeah.
But they're-
It's getting saved.
But this is wonderful. There's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much
yeah.
good news. We
Yeah,
need
it
to
is
hear
a
good
lot
news.
of good news.
My interest has always been in agriculture. So when we met and they were interested in agriculture, it was a natural connection. These are people in development, and they're in agriculture, and they're in wells. They were into all things that were interesting, that were fascinating. There was a chemistry, I think.
And you were a dean at a university in Ghana, right?
Yes, I was then the dean of the School of Agriculture, University of Cape Coast in Ghana.
And you've since left that post to run the pineapple plantation?
Yes, now we have a farm, a big farm, and it needs full-time attention, so we are working on it. Currently, we have close to 200 acres, but we are developing 2,000 acres. The idea is to have a sustainable business that's profitable and that also gives jobs to local people and allows women who otherwise will have no jobs to have sustained livelihoods.
So most of the people who work there are women, yes? And
Yes, about 90% of our employees are women.
And they're local women, I assume.
Yeah.
And they work all year? Is it all year job?
Yes, it's an all-year
Because you have
job.
you have a great climate. You don't,
Yeah.
you don't have to stop
Yes,
for snow, right?
Exactly.
How long has this field been around?
Between 1.5 to 2 years that we've been working here.
Just fallow land. It just looks like this. So that's the before picture in the distance.
Yes, that's
That's
the
what it was
before
before,
picture.
and this is now.
Yeah. Actually, the before picture is more like the one up there.
On the hilltop, I
Yes.
see. They use a machete like we would use a scalpel, and they are able to plant row after row after row of sucklings that are offshoots from the main pineapple branch, what they call the mother.
What happens is that when you harvest a pineapple, the mother plant you've harvested will give you 4 suckers, like 4 baby plants.
Yes.
So we harvest those suckers, then we grade them to make sure they are the same size. So you harvest them, you grade them, you prepare the land, then you plant the suckers in the mulch into the soil.
The result is a very fast growing crop that pretty much never stops producing.
We all tried to plant one,
Yes.
and none of us could quite get it securely into the ground.
Yeah. Okay, it's hard work. It's manual, but it's also it's let me say profitable and it's satisfying.
So you'll show me, huh?
Here we go.
Here we go.
So demonstration film.
Yeah.
You see these women cutting
Yes.
this hole and planting
very
it. They're
hard.
so
Yes,
fast.
once you get the technique, it's not that difficult.
Do that? Planting the pineapple looks really easy when you're doing it. It's deceptively easy. It's hard as can be. I tried 5 times and failed 4 times. I finally got one that she would accept at the end.
We don't have to mark them, right?
Okay or no?
You have a good sense of your process.
You have to go down at least 10 inches, and it has to be facing the sun just the right way. Mine, I guarantee you, you will never eat that product. They must have pulled them out right after I left.
Joe and Ida have 3 wonderful children, and their middle son, Daniel, and I had a conversation about education. And I was telling him, because I have farming in my background and respect it a lot, I was telling him that I thought farming would be a focus where you could learn everything on a farm. Math and English and journaling and certainly every kind of science. And then I said, well, maybe not music. And he said, oh, wait till you get there. So the first time we saw the farm, we saw these groups of women, and one would be going one direction and one group would be going another direction, and they were singing to each other, singing these wonderful songs of worship and of keeping each other together and keeping the spirit going. And so, yes, indeed, music is definitely a part of the curriculum.
mean, dancing, singing is part of Ghanaian culture. When they are happy, they do it. So I think when you showed up, they were happy. And so they were expressing their joy.
And the singing that keeps them together, keeps them working, gives them encouragement, because it's very hard work and it's hot. And I stood there and I thought, this is the beginning of American music. The idea of singing for sustenance in a field is what's behind blues and jazz and all those kinds of things that we consider to be American music. So I was so touched by the singing and the workers. They were so happy and so hardworking, and the singing was really helping them. So you can learn everything on a farm now.
Amazing.
I know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Most people think of poverty and they don't understand that people are poor because they don't have jobs. So anytime you enable people to work, you see, you are addressing poverty. And I think what Susan and Dick are doing is one of the most satisfying things anybody can be doing.
The NGO is supported by Richard and Susie Kephart, and it's called Development Assistance to School Farms. We call it DASFA. It's a brainchild of my husband, Joe. He teaches at the University of Cape Coast, and he found out that his students were performing very well academically, but their hands-on knowledge of agriculture in some areas was not up to par.
Right.
These are the top students in the country. They're brilliant, and that gave birth to the idea of DASFA, that we would support the practical teaching of agriculture at the lower levels so that by the time they get to the university, they'll be balanced.
But how do students react to this really practical world?
It was very exciting for them to have something to do, to put their hands to, and I think that probably that is really exemplified in the deaf school because they can't speak.
This is a school for deaf and blind children that often go ignored and rejected by their family and society.
In the past, it was very difficult for them to understand why these children are accessing education. So this time we have educated them in their way that when they access education, it's better than nothing.
Some parents can be difficult. I will let you read a test on my phone. One of the university students who's going to get married asked Ida and I to stand in for him as parents so he can get, because his father has never been able to accept him because he's blind. But he's gone all the way up to this level. It's a very painful thing for him. Yes, he's graduated and he doesn't know his father as we speak because he was born blind and man rejected him.
That one.
So he just sent us a test to stand in as parents for him. We've agreed to do that.
The son said, why did you give to such a child, a disabled child, to me? Why? As if the woman herself did it. The school, Cape Deaf, is very grateful to Kephart, and that's why.
They have this incredible dance program where the deaf students can, believe it or not, feel the drum beat through their feet on the floor.
Yes. Imagine you're in a car where somebody's turned up the boombox in the back too much. You sort of feel that beat and you can't help it if it hurts your ears. They don't have ears to hurt, but they feel it.
These are deaf and there are some blind students as well. And it is public, and we have an extensive farm program there with both animal husbandry and growing.
Right.
People are learning farming in schools, And in the deaf school, those children are learning to farm so they'll have a profession when they get out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is important in Ghana because
Very,
you have so much
very.
farming
Yes.
that it will be very
Yes.
much worthwhile.
Yes, absolutely.
So they'll be able to work and get jobs.
So instead of going
Absolutely.
back to their village and being perceived as handicapped people,
Yes.
they go back with a skill
Exactly.
and they are
Absolutely.
respected if you
Absolutely.
have
Absolutely.
the job.
This school has helped my life well. I didn't know there were so many problems. The difficult world out there that we just kind of build a hedge around and hide. But last year they went to Parliament to engage with parliamentarians so that people become aware that they are there in this society. Because like people don't see them, and that's a problem. And they've won that best school farm in their category for 2 years. So they've done very well. We are very proud of this school. And you see, when they win these national awards, then everybody, how did they do that? Because it's not easy to win a national award. So if all these schools, thousands of schools, you are the best, not only once, but twice, then people begin to. So if they are really doing more for us than they know.
The students learn many types of agriculture.
We visited this poultry project at the school. The point of this training is to give children skills so they can find jobs in agriculture.
This community needs more than jobs. It needs a good education, and that's very difficult to come by if you're deaf or blind in Ghana. These children are often ignored and shunned and even thought to be a curse from God.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're expected to be a curse from God and you're born and you try your best, people are still going to look at you and say, look, there's a curse from God walking down the street. And it's very hard to get over that image. These kids are well aware that if they don't have a job, the skill, when they leave this place, their possibility to become a street beggar is enormous. Even though they are very bright kids, the country really doesn't allow them to have a job if they're disabled. So they have to come in with some skill that everyone else doesn't have. And this is one that is perfect. So they can take this job skill out in the community after they graduate and use it to make money.
I mean, I thought it was natural, logical, that these are needy people. They will be supported. Do you know when the cake is shared in the country, these are the last groups that get considered for crumbs. They're the few people who are fighting. We need to support all of you.
I interviewed the kids, and the last question I asked all the kids that were together is who wants to be the president of the country? And they had never imagined that they could be the president of the country. So they laughed, and then many of their hands shot up into the air because they realized they could do that. And I said, I think you can. But it was the first time someone challenged them on that level.
The Kipharts and the Quertings are just 4 people, yet they took the time to learn about another community, Ghana, and their wants and their needs, and the results speak for themselves.
Forgive me, but you two are 2 of the best examples I know of a couple of things. One is getting people involved, because you were at the beginning of this story, you were at an affluent church with kids that didn't know very much about others in need. They didn't know about the other side of the planet. And really, this started by you trying to raise awareness of the needs of others. Does that sound fair?
I don't feel heroic about it. It's simply a kind of human, you find that your fulfillment comes in your contact and sharing what you have.
Hey, Joe?
Yeah.
Child's name is Kiphart.
Oh,
I'm a mommy, but I'm not your mom.
there you go.
Susie's only a baby that was born Sunday.
And this baby's name is
Heart. Little girl.
a little girl.
When you do a well or a school, that it's not about you anymore. I mean, your name may be there, but you hope that it's not about you at all anymore, that the community embrace it and own it.
Right. If someone's watching us right now and they think, I don't know, what could I do to make a difference? What could one person do?
One person can do a lot, I think. If one person and one more person and one more person and one more person, then that really is a lot. And they know us, and we come back and we care about them, and they care about us. So
Right.
it's a good thing.
It
Well,
works
you're
better that way.
There was almost no one that didn't know the name Kephart when we were there. Almost nobody. I mean, they name schools after you, they do it, but it's really to remember that you're remembering them. You know, the reason I think that they put your name around because they know you're going to come back.
A lot of people think they can jet in and
Right.
drop a dollar, leave,
Yeah.
and write me later. But you know, I think for us, it's all been about the relations.
It's a place that you go on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
And these people know you.
It's very gratifying for us to
Yeah.
know people on the other side of the world in another situation.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Ghana is a booming country, an emerging market that will improve the lives of millions of its citizens. It is a story of success that will be a model by countless other countries with good ideas and the will to use them.
And it's possible anywhere. From Ghana's Cape Coast to the shores of Lake Michigan, communities can change because just one person can turn their ideas into visionary, powerful actions.